What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of JohnnyVTV Live. Join with me, my co-host back in the flesh, Joe Calabrese. How you doing, brother?
Finally, after a couple of weeks, we're back together. Can't wait.
Where you been? On sabbatical?
I've been on sabbatical. I got to take care of my mother and father. You know that.
I'm just teasing, bro. Listen, don't get sentimental on me. I know. I hope everything is going well with them. And listen, bro, we have a great guest today. We've been trying to schedule her for a few weeks, but just some miscommunications and a couple things are popping up. We got Taylor Mathis, sports betting expert of Superbook Sports. Let's bring her on. Taylor, how you doing? Thank you so much for taking the time.
Hello, I'm doing great. How are you guys doing?
We're good. We're good. Thank you for joining us. Appreciate it.
No problem.
I could complain, but who'd listen?
I like that answer.
I definitely don't listen to him.
So Taylor, we mentioned it backstage, but for anybody that didn't know, happy birthday. Hope it was a great one. You were talking about how much fun you had in San Diego, La Jolla, the whole deal, the whole gang showed up, and you guys probably just blew it out the water. So happy belated birthday.
Thank you so much. Yeah, we had a great time. It was my first time in San Diego. I've been to California a bunch, but just never really to Southern California. So I love to travel and explore new cities, and it was really fun to do it with some of my girlfriends. We had a great time. Honestly, I wish we could have stayed like a day longer. I think all of us would have liked even one more day to explore like the beach towns a little bit more, but next time gives me a reason to go back.
You know what's crazy? I always found out, except for the one time I had a bachelor party for one of my best friends. Guys are not organized when a bunch of them go on a trip. They're just like, hey, like, what do you guys want to do? I don't know. If you have like 10 guys go on a trip, you're going to get about 8 different answers of what they should do. But girls, when a group of you guys go, you're all organized. You have an itinerary. Sometimes it's like, all right, like, where's the downtime? But you guys are organized, well planned out. And guys just have absolutely zero organization. So it's a skill, man. It really is. And especially with bachelorette parties.
That is the most accurate thing I've ever heard, because the first night we were unpacking, we brought our own groceries. We brought our own alcohol for the house, like everything like that. And we did have our own itinerary typed out, planned out by my roommate. So like we knew what we were doing every day, because you need to know if you're a girl. I'm like, what kind of outfit am I packing for this occasion? So girls like to know all of that kind of stuff, get an idea of like what kind of money they're going to be spending at certain places. I don't know. We just plan a lot better. We were very on top of it. We knew exactly what we were doing and what was planned for each day. So I do like being a girl in that sense.
You know what, though? It's pretty funny because my dad always taught me, he goes, listen, preparation. And that hit the nail on the head. You got that's something to be proud of. And listen, girls aren't the only one that need a lot of options. Joe can tell you, I have to pack like 2 suitcases because I don't know what I'm going to wear. I always pack for 2 weeks if I'm going away somewhere for one. I have a lot of options. Listen, girls aren't the only one that's got to look good. I got to look good at all times. I got a reputation to protect. So, I want to be throwing that one out there. We can't be just trying to live for a week with 3 days worth of clothes.
Exactly.
But okay, so Joe, start us off here. Week 9, what really stood out to you the most? It was probably an improvement on the NFL slate from the last couple of weeks. And is there anything in particular that really stuck out to you?
Well, I'm going to be a little bit biased here, but I was at the Jets game Sunday, and I didn't think they had a prayer at winning, and they really, really, really surprised me. And I think the takeaway coming out of that game is that I think a lot of people have looked at the Eagles and the Bills as the top 2 teams in the NFL this season, rightly so far. And coming out of that game, I wasn't really impressed with the Bills' offense. I thought they looked a little bit stagnant. You trade for Anee Hines, and he wasn't in the game plan the first game that you got him. It was a little weird to me. Stephon Diggs did not have – I mean, he had a solid game. He didn't really have a great game after that opening catch, after he made that catch against Sauce Gardner. And they had an 11-point lead, and they blew it. And Zach Wilson wasn't really particularly good on Sunday either. It was a very Jets defense, strong defensive performance from them. So I look at the Bills here, and now I see after that game on Sunday, I see Josh Allen kind of toying with that injury. They said it was UCL. Anybody who watches baseball knows it means Tommy John, right? You don't know how hurt he is. So they didn't look impressive. Josh Allen might be hurt. I don't know. The MVP race kind of took a little bit of a hit on Sunday. The AFC is kind of a lot of teams that are stacked together. So I don't know if the Bills are that like definitively is the favorites anymore in the AFC.
Taylor, same question.
Oh, well, being honest with you, I didn't get to watch a lot of football on Sunday because we were driving and there is zero service there's zero service between Arizona to San Diego. So like you basically are just in the car like listening to music. I could barely see anything. So I mostly got to watch look at things after the fact. Going into Sunday, I'm not surprised by it because I actually called it, but I think that the Green Bay Packers are dead in the water at this point. They look terrible. I think Aaron Rodgers should have retired. And at this point, for them to lose to the Lions, they have no hope going forward. They play my Cowboys this week. I'm very excited because this is one time that the Cowboys actually look like they could knock off the Green Bay Packers, which has rarely happened over the last, 10 years, really. So I think that the Green Bay Packers are pretty much done for.
Yeah, that's a good point because this is a game that we're going to talk more in depth about later on in the show. But really what stood out to me was, again, it's the underdogs. It's just the complete parity in the NFL right now, which is what they wanted. I don't necessarily think it's a good thing. Scoring continues to be down. Just the overall performances across the board aren't very good outside of a handful of teams. And one of those teams in the Buffalo Bills, Joe, now they opened a lot of doors. They opened up Pandora's box by losing a layup. I don't care if it's a division game. It's a layup. You have to win that one. Now the Chiefs are live to win the AFC. The road to the Super Bowl could go through Kansas City. The MVP market is wide open. Now it even opens the door for a guy like Tua Tagovailoa if, a couple things keep happening. Not saying it will, but Mahomes is rightfully the favorite. There's a lot of things that happen now. Robert Saleh, Coach of the Year, right back in it. Sauce Gardner further cements his D-Roy status. Got a nice, big, fat ticket on him, looking to cash it for a butter Christmas present. But the big thing on Josh Allen here, if it is indeed a partial UCL tear, which I don't think we got confirmation on, I don't know if there was a confirmation on that, but if it is indeed that, they're saying, maybe 2-3 weeks. And I understand it's apples to oranges, but the guy last year who had a partial UCL tear was Tyler Glasnow of the Tampa Bay Rays. And he had a flexor tendon, which is usually what happens in baseball, and it led to a partial tear, UCL. And the Rays tried to say, we're going to see how it heals over the next couple months. They elect to not get him surgery immediately to help him return earlier for 2022. Guess what? He can't play anyway, and it puts him out, pretty much takes away his entire 2022 season. So, you have to be careful with a situation like that if you're Josh Allen. If he has to end up getting that surgery because it's not healing on its own, then he's going to be taken out for probably a year. And I understand the motion of a football and baseball is different, but still, when you throw with as much velocity and as much power as he does, it's still going to come back because when you're throwing the ball, you need that extra whip. So it's definitely something to be concerned about. And we're going to be talking about that Buffalo Bills game shortly as well. But here we go.
I have something to throw in.
Yes.
I gotta disagree with you because you said that the Bills-Jets game should have been a layup. I feel like everybody looking at the NFL this season, they're like the underdog teams are winning, or it's the swing of the teams that we see being good changing. Guys that should be, top of the league and teams that we assumed would be top coming into this year, like the Bucks, the Packers, teams like that aren't anymore. And some of these younger guys are starting to take over. So I don't really look at the Jets as a layup team anymore. The Seahawks going in against the Bucks this week, that's not a layup win anymore for Tom Brady. I feel like teams are progressively getting better who used to be layup teams. And we're seeing some of those better teams regress. I think that there's just a swing of change in the NFL teams' power rankings.
So that is a fair point. However, the reason why I think it's a layup in this case is because there's no AVT. there's no Breece Hall. Zach Wilson isn't that good. And in the regards that the Bills were missing some key pieces, it's not like the Jets put up 40 on them. This was a winnable game. The Bills were up double digits, I believe, in the third quarter, Joe. Correct me if I'm wrong.
They had an 11-point lead. And
I mean, but the final score was only 17-20.
It was a 27.
It wasn't even a very high-scoring game, period.
It was a weird game at the end because the Jets really won the game on the ground. And again, Breece Hall was hurt, right?
They did it without Breece Hall.
Yeah, they relied on Michael Carter, who just like chewed him up at the end. It was kind of weird watching live. I was like, but yeah, I mean, like I said, I think the AFC teams are now clumped together. I think the Ravens now are alive. I think the Chiefs are alive. I think the Chargers, despite how they played the first 9 games, they're alive too, right? So
I think that I'm more looking at the NFC teams over the AFC teams because I still think the Bills are top of the league. I'm just saying I don't think the Jets should be viewed as a layup anymore because they're not that bad. As in opposing years, they were god-awful and you knew that a team, pretty much anybody was beating them. Now I just don't think that teams like the Jets or the Seahawks are considered quote-unquote layups anymore. That's what I think the difference is.
I'm saying I disagree with you, and I like that you have a different opinion here. I just think Buffalo had to win that game. That's not somewhere you can stumble. You can stumble against a team like the Chiefs, even the Dolphins, because the Dolphins are a better team than the Jets are, better roster and everything. And listen, I'm not taking anything away from the Jets. Robert Saleh, man, I would love for him to win Coach of the Year. I come out with another big payout as well as Sauce Gardner. So, but if you're Buffalo, you're vying for a Super Bowl. You're viewed as the best thing since sliced bread, even though you haven't accomplished anything. You need to win that game, especially when you know Kansas City is breathing down your neck. And possibly the only thing that separates you is that tiebreaker that you had from a couple of weeks ago. So my point is they had to win that game. This was one of their most winnable games probably for the rest of the season.
I see your point. I just disagree with you.
Hey,
I don't think
fine.
so at
That's
all.
Fine.
I think that good teams like the Bills, there's going to be weeks where you just don't have a very good week. They didn't have a great week against the Jets. I mean, in the long run, it doesn't really matter because the Chiefs and the Bills will meet again, most likely, for the AFC title. So it really doesn't matter if the Chiefs have a better record than them. They just get home field advantage. I just don't really see it as they had to win that game at the end of the day.
Well, it impacts a little bit more. It impacts the MVP market most likely because now if the Chiefs
doesn't count for to win a Super Bowl. That's what I'm like.
No.
That doesn't impact the entire team. That just impacts individual players.
That's a fair point. But it does impact a little bit just because if you're Buffalo, you want to play at home. You went to Kansas City last year. It's a tough crowd. The home field in the NFL accounts for about 1.5 points in home field advantage right now. And it's actually gone down over the last 4 years, I believe. But still, 1.5 points, that's a nice value there if you're the home team. And you got to get the Chiefs out of their element just a little bit. But let's get into week 10 here. Taylor, start us off. We have the Seattle Seahawks getting 2.5 in Germany at 9:30 in the morning Eastern time. Where are you going with this one? Do you think the Seahawks will keep this gravy train rolling or what?
Well, I think these two are two of the most surprising teams in the league through 9 weeks. Seattle's leading the NFC West with a 6-3 record behind quarterback Geno Smith. And Smith looks solid in his divisional matchup against the Cardinals last week. Tampa on the other side of the spectrum, the greatest of all time, Tom Brady, doesn't look like the greatest anymore. They're 4-5. I would have thought going into this season that these two records would be swapped. The only bright spot for Tampa is they aren't out of the hunt. They're still tied for first with the Falcons in the NFC South, even though that's not saying very much. It is very cool that I think that they're taking this to Munich, Germany for this game. This contest is being played on a soccer pitch. And from what we've seen in the past with football teams, they struggle playing games on a pitch, which leads me to believe that the total leans towards the under 45.5. I am not really one to particularly bet on totals, but that's just what I'm seeing from the trend. If I look to the props market, although numbers aren't out, I'm going to look at Seattle's running back, Kenneth Walker, over his rushing prop when that number comes out. Smith has been a great story for the Seahawks, but Walker is the offensive weapon game changer for that team. 570 yards, that's top 15 in the league, 7 TDs, that ranks 4th. And Walker's really found his groove over the last 5 games. He's averaging over 100 yards on the ground. Plus, the Bucs run D gives up 125 rushing yards a game. So I like Walker over. And with that 11-hour travel that both of these teams have to suit, I feel like that sits better for this younger, hungry Seattle team than the aging Tampa vets. That's just my opinion. I like the Seattle Seahawks plus 2.5. I actually like Seattle to win outright too. I think there's a chance for them. They're 4-0 against the spread in their last 4 games. The Bucs are 0-6-1 against their spread in their last 7. I hate looking at betting trends, but I'm going to follow this one and take Seattle plus 2.5.
All right, coming out with us here. So I have a note about that travel, but first, Joe, I want to hear your thoughts on this one as well.
I think there's going to be a lot of recency bias coming out of that Tampa game because, Johnny, I know you love your Rams. They won you a lot of money last year. I thought the Rams lost that game more than Tampa won that game. Absolutely. And we've seen Brady do this 200 times, right? In his career, just lead them right back down, final 2 minutes of the game. But I didn't come out of that game last week thinking Tampa's offense was all of a sudden fixed. You know what I mean? And it's not like Seattle, it's not like their offense has looked great lately either. I mean, that game last week against the Cardinals, and they were getting points in that game too. And that was fishy to me because Seattle's been looking like the better team all season. So I didn't really understand that line. Obviously, they won the game outright, which wasn't surprising to me at all. The week before against the Giants, it was kind of just a defensive special teams battle. More so the points came from the turnovers on both the special team sides, right? So I'm with Taylor here. I like the over-under just seems too high to me. Like even though it's 45, which is not a significantly high total, I'm leaning big time under, and I see it now with 44.5 in a lot of places, right? And I'm also with her on Seattle. When are we going to stop underestimating the Seahawks? When are we going to start giving them a little bit of credit? So I totally agree with her on here. It's boring, but I like the way Geno was played. And again, I don't like the recency bias with Tampa. I think a lot of people are going to come out of that game thinking, "Oh, Tampa's fixed it. They figured it out." That might be just two teams that loaded up for last year, the last 2 years, and not as deep as they were. Played a very blag game, both sides. And who knows? I mean, I also take Pete Carroll in a game like this as opposed to Todd Bowles, because being a Jets fan, I've seen Todd Bowles as a coach, and seeing him at Tampa, what he's been doing so far this year, just no confidence that he's going to be able to ride this out. So,
okay, so quick note on the travel that I promised. I was informed, and I would not know this. I am not a world traveling connoisseur just yet. I'm more of a country. I'm traveling within the country, whatever. I was informed that Seattle has a much shorter flight to Germany than Tampa Bay. How, you might ask? Seattle is flying over the North Pole. Not that I would have ever suspected that, because that's just not something I thought. You're flying over the North Pole, whereas Tampa's just got to go up, 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 and away. And so it's actually going to be a shorter flight to Seattle, which is interesting to me. That is just something I guess travelers would know that I wouldn't. And listen, I've been on Seattle all year. Since probably week 2. I keep seeing them every week in favorable betting spots, and every week they just keep continuing to be there. They're not giving Seattle the respect they deserve. They probably still don't believe in Geno Smith. Now, the Seahawks have surpassed their win total for the season of 5.5 already. Love to see it. Geno Smith is my comeback player of the year. Grabbed them at some 20-1. How you doing? Pete Carroll, now in the betting portfolio, coach of the year as well. So when I look at the Seattle Seahawks, they're able to beat the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. This defense is not the same. They lose Shaq Barrett. He's their guy. He's the one that gets home. He's capable of 16.5 sacks. We saw it a few years ago. And I think with the way Tampa Bay is just giving up on the ground, you saw what other teams are doing against them besides LA, of course, because they can't run the ball either. But in my opinion here, I think I'm with you with Kenny Walker. He's just been on fire. He's one of the best 3 backs in the NFL over the last 5 weeks. And I think Papa DK Metcalf, Tyler Lockett, they're going to get loose because Tampa Bay is just not it right now, and they really should have lost. I like Seattle to win outright and keep this gravy train rolling. 7 weeks in a row for my Seahawks, who I just took a little sprinkle on to win the Super Bowl this morning. So let's get after it. Next up here, we have the Dallas Cowboys against Taylor's Green Bay Packers, or Taylor's Dallas Cowboys, right?
I am. I'm a gigantic Dallas Cowboy fan. Even though I'm from the Chicago area, people never understand how that came about. But my dad is from Iowa. He grew up a giant Cowboys fan because it was one of the only teams on like the 3 cable channels that he had. So he grew up a big Cowboys fan. He raised me a Cowboys fan. So I'm not a Bears fan, shockingly.
It's had to be a tough life for you growing up as a Cowboys fan.
Not terrible. I mean, I was born in the 90s. Granted, I was really little when they won some of those Super Bowls, so I don't really remember that. So, I mean, most of my time has been spent as a Cowboys fan hoping this is the year, and it's yet to happen. But I still love my Cowboys. I'm also a Cubs fan, so that was way worse for me than being a Cowboys fan.
Cubs had one of my favorite college baseball players drafted this year. First round.
Really?
Yeah. He's a stud.
I love that. Maybe we can have another Kyle Schwarber story then. That's good to hear.
No, he's a pitcher. The kid.
I just meant coming out of college, drafted by the Cubs.
Oh yeah.
And ended up being a phenomenal player who helped us win the World Series. That's what I was going for there.
I'll keep you out for his name. He's become my darling over the last month of this season. This past year. His name's Cade Horton.
Horton. Okay. Where he play in college?
Oklahoma.
All right.
Yeah.
All right. I like it. I'm going to keep a lookout for him for sure.
Yeah, he's very good. But this is a football show right now, so let's keep it going here. Taylor, hit us off here with the Dallas Cowboys. Do you think they cover in Lambeau Field, drop the Green Bay Packers with their 6th straight loss?
Well, I spoke to it earlier. Normally, as a Cowboys fan, I would be shaking in my boots, scared of Aaron Rodgers and the Packers. But this is one time that I am finally not scared of them whatsoever. They just don't look like they have it in them anymore. I already said before, I think that Aaron Rodgers probably should have retired and he didn't. That's on him now. I actually heard a quote on the radio today of him saying that a reporter asked him, and he's like, in hindsight, 2020, I can't go back on that now, but things just look bleak for Rodgers and the rest of his squad. He's clearly frustrated, especially coming off that loss to the Lions. So I'm interested to see how this one is going to go. The Cowboys were rolling it 2 weeks ago, coming off of a bye now. They scored 49 points against the Bears. The Bears aren't great, but hey, Dallas has a great defense. They lead the league in sack percentage. Rodgers is going to be constantly in trouble and under pressure. He threw 3 interceptions last week against the Lions. He's going to be even under more pressure this week facing that Cowboys defense. I would take Rodgers to throw an interception if you're looking in the props market. And as I continue to fade the Packers and look more into that market as well, I'm going to go over on Dallas's running back, Tony Pollard, for his rushing yards and for him to score an anytime TD. Pollard 2 weeks ago ran for 131 yards, 3 touchdowns, and he has 5 throughout the season. That ranks top 10 in the NFL. Green Bay's run D since bottom 10, allowing 139 yards a game. Pollard over rushing and an anytime touchdown for him, especially if Ezekiel Elliott doesn't play. Right now, it looks like he's still possibly questionable, although I do think he will play. But I still like my Tony Pollard plays.
Pollard's the guy right now. And anybody who's watched Dallas the last year or two has said Zeke should not be the running back for much longer. Pollard is younger. He's quicker. He's faster. He looks more explosive. He's a better playmaker. Zeke is more so a guy that you're 3rd and 1, short yardage, goal line, red zone, fine. But he's not a guy who should be handling the ball 20 to 25 times like he was in 2016, 2017, 2018. But I love that Tony Pollard look. And I'm all in on Dallas -5. I think Green Bay has quit. I think Dallas matches up better with them. Green Bay has no receivers outside maybe Alan Lazard. Aaron Jones has a high ankle sprain. It came back negative, but ankles are tricky, especially for a dynamic guy who could cut on a dime like he can. Rodgers looks like he doesn't want to be there anymore. You're going to have to deal with Micah Parsons, huge favorite defensive player of the year. He can get after the quarterback. He's got a 75% snap percentage at DN, but he can still drop back at linebacker. So I think this is a spot where if the Packers are just not giving any effort, why should we believe in them? Right. I think their season's done. I think they're going to end up having a top 10 pick next year. And Dallas right now has to stay on the heels of the Philadelphia Eagles. Prescott, Zeke Elliott, Tony Pollard, CeeDee Lamb, the whole crew comes out. I think they win by double digits. Put them on margin. What do you think, Joe?
There's really nothing left for me to say after that. You guys stole everything that I was going to say. I was going to say that the Dallas pass rush in this game in particular is a huge problem for Rodgers, because usually in years past, when you get him off his spot, he's able to improvise. He's able to do some trickery. He's got enough weapons to work with where he's able to find the guy down the field and he's able to make plays out of nothing. You have seen absolutely none of that this year. You can make a good case that the Packers, their best method outside of Alan Lazard and able to move the ball down the field through the air has been using the running back valve, using Aaron Jones, right? And they also have A.J. Dillon, who he's been okay this year. I've been largely unimpressed. I like the Rodgers to throw a pick prop. He doesn't throw picks too often, but if there's a matchup here that favors that, I think Dallas is definitely the team to do it. And this is another game that I can see going under 2. I mean, the lowly Lions last week, Green Bay didn't look like they had a pulse. And that game, again, was on the road, too. And I don't think coming back home is really going to do them any favors. They look like they should have traded Rodgers in the offseason. I think San Francisco would have been a nice destination. But, yeah, I like the under in this game, too. I just don't think you're going to get a lot of points. And I think the points that you do get are going to come after Dallas has lengthy drives using Tony Pollard. I think on the ground, you guys hit the nail on the head. Zeke is done. He's more of the complimentary back to Pollard as opposed to the other way around. But yeah, I can't see a lot of points in this game either.
Something interesting about what you just said. I think Rodgers is more concerned about drinking Hawaii Oscar or whatever that stuff is called, that Amazon potion stuff that Aaron Andrews was talking about with him in like week 1 or week 2. I think losing Davante Adams, which I wouldn't believe he thought he was actually going to lose Tay because he wouldn't have signed. I mean, maybe he just said, listen, 3 more years, $40 million a year, why not? But Aaron Rodgers has definitely been very upfront about wanting to compete for championships. And I really don't believe he would have stayed if he thought Davante Adams was going to leave. But I guess Davante Adams, you could tell him he probably wants to be out too of Vegas, because Derek Carr and Josh McDaniels is a 2-time loser. Can't get it done on his own as a head coach.
Just like Todd Bowles right now. He's a 2-time loser.
Just like Paulie Wallens, he goes, great. We're taking advice from a 2-time loser.
See, the funny part is everybody criticizes Mike McCarthy, right? But Mike McCarthy was a winner in Green Bay. Everything that we've seen so far, he's a winner in Dallas.
Mike McCarthy is not the answer in Dallas.
Yes, thank you.
No way.
I think he gets too much criticism. Do I love him? No.
What? I don't think he gets enough criticism.
Joe. He is maybe the definition of average.
I
agree.
He's lucky. I agree. I think he got lucky in Green Bay because of what he had to offer on the field. That's why.
People are like, oh, Mike McCarthy. I'm like, do you not realize he had 2 of the best quarterbacks to ever play back to back? And then he goes to Dallas, one of the most talented rosters that sorry, I'm yelling out here. One of the most talented rosters that he's going to end up having for, I mean, no other coach is going to really get in this situation. But in any case here, let's start it off with Minnesota Vikings, Buffalo Bills, -5.5. Joe, I will graciously let you start off with this one. Please take it away.
We both really like that Vikings team this season, right? And I don't want to continue to reiterate the points that I was making before about the Bills, right? But we don't have a definitive answer here about Josh Allen. There's a chance that he doesn't play on Sunday, right? You're looking at this line the way I'm looking at it, correct?
Mm-hmm.
What is it?
Road dog getting 5 or 5.5, aka the Royal Mint. This is a butter matchup for the Minnesota Vikings.
So I am going to that was your segue. I was throwing you the curveball right down the pipe because I knew you loved doing this. We're both on the same page here. We're taking the Vikings 5.5, right? I feel that feels like a gift to me.
It's an absolute smash play.
She's shaking her head.
I'm disagreeing with you guys.
Yeah, go ahead, disagree, Taylor. You don't know about the Royal Mint, but after this week you will. I've had to
know what's the Royal Mint.
Okay,
explain it, Johnny.
The Royal Mint is a gift to all of humanity that was given to me to bestow upon the rest of the world. From a person, a very reliable source who's been in the betting business for a very, very long time, talking decades. This person told me about 5 years ago, always take the road dog getting 5 or 5.5, always. And every now and then you'll throw in an exception. Like last week, I didn't take the Colts because of the situation with Tim Ellinger. The reason is because Vegas cannot handicap that number. They just can't, because at some point they're like, I don't think this team should be getting this many points as in a touchdown, 6 points, but they also shouldn't be getting this few points as in 3 or 3.5. Therefore, it is a difficult number. Now, if you look back at the data, that will be accurately reflected. You could see I wrote an article on NBC Sports about it. So if you're looking at this situation here, the only two teams that have not covered this year is the Colts and then Seattle earlier in the year against the Saints, which is only because that was the worst officiated game of all time. So I always take this. I call it the Royal Mint because it's a money-making machine.
Okay, well, you're making me rethink my pick now.
Ooh.
Now I feel like I should be taking the Vikings, but I was looking at it between the Vikings and the Bills. Technically, on paper, they're two of the best teams in the NFL. Minnesota 7-1, Buffalo 6-2. Both teams struggled though last week. The Vikings barely were squeaking by with a 20-17 win over the Commanders. Bills, as we already talked about, lost to the Jets. I just think that Bills better shouldn't fret yet. Like I said before, good teams occasionally lose, and I think that's just what happened last week. I'm going with this bet based on the fact that I think Josh Allen is going to play on Sunday. If things change, then I would probably go with the Vikings. But I just think right now, with Josh Allen playing, the Bills will bounce back on Sunday. I think the Vikings are frauds. They sit comfortably in first place in the NFC North. And yes, they have only lost one game. But Minnesota has only faced two teams that have winning records. And one of those was the Eagles, and that's the game that they lost. The Vikings defense is honestly garbage. They rank bottom 3 in yards allowed per passing attempt, 7.4 yards. They're dead last in red zone TDs, letting opponents score a touchdown 79% of the time. That should bode well for the Bills in their explosive offense. So I actually like laying the 5.5 with the Bills, plus 64% of the public is currently on the Vikings. So I'm going to fade the public and go with the Bills.
Well, you know what? Sometimes it doesn't always hit, but a lot of people have had to learn the hard way.
I might change my mind as we head towards Sunday, but currently where I'm sitting on this Tuesday, I like the Bills.
That is perfectly fine. And if this should close 5 or 5.5, it's a no doubter. I already played it to Minnesota. The reason I say in terms of actual matchup, I don't think Minnesota's going to, or Buffalo's going to have much of an answer for Justin Jefferson, Dalvin Cook coming out of the backfield. Because what we saw from the Eagles game on that Monday night, Philadelphia has a much more aggressive and a much better defense and a much healthier defense than what the Buffalo Bills currently have. Even the Bills are missing Matt Milano, their linebacker. He's their quarterback of their defense. Their secondary is in shambles right now. No Tre'Davious White, Micah Pryor done for the year, Jordan Poyer. It's just a complete mess. And I think that's why they're going to have trouble. And I do agree the Vikings have a bad defense, especially in the secondary. However, the way with Josh Allen's injury, if it's not right, I mean, he was probably being able to make that 70-yard bomb rolling to his left on the last play of the game off of adrenaline. Now, when that adrenaline wears off, what happens? Because if he does have a partial UCL tear, that's not necessarily good. We might not see the same quarterback. And honestly, this is just one of those spots where I think Minnesota is going to be able to run the ball. They're going to be able to just keep drives going, 8-9 plays, 5-6 minutes, and keep Buffalo on the sideline because, quite frankly, I just don't think the Bills are going to be able to take advantage of the weaknesses of that Minnesota defense to the extent where they're going to win or even cover this game.
May I chime in?
All right, you're swaying like I'm very in the middle on this
May
game.
I chime in with one more stat? From the game against the Jets on Sunday, right? And Johnny and I kind of agree with this, right? Zach Wilson to me is just kind of right now.
Yes.
Plays all right. He's not really, hasn't shown much. In that game, there were only 3 Jets receivers who had over 1 reception. 5 of them had 1 reception. James Robinson had 2 catches for 5 yards and a touchdown. CJ Uzama had 3 catches for 16 yards. And Garrett Wilson had most of the funnel work. 8 receptions, 92 yards. He didn't find the end zone, but he was the safety valve, and he was the guy that the Wilson to Wilson connection worked on Sunday. The Vikings passing game with Kirk Cousins is much better. There's a lot of depth to that offense, and I think Johnny's right here. I think if you're looking to player props on Sunday, if Garrett Wilson's able to torch this secondary that's banged up for 8 catches, 92 yards, what do you think Justin Jefferson's going to do? So if I like Jefferson's over on his catches, whatever that is, I'm having it in front of me. And if you're looking for a touchdown, obviously go with the guy that Johnny has to win Offensive Player of the Year. But yeah, I just think I think it's an odd matchup because you're right. It's 2 of the better teams in the NFL, but I think the Vikings here between the 5.5 that I knew Johnny was going to love to hammer and then kind of catching the Vikings here. I don't think it's a great spot for the Bills.
Quite frankly, I didn't even touch on the TJ Hawkinson acquisition. We saw, the Bills in theory have been good against tight ends, but their defense is looking a lot different than it was even a month ago. Hawkinson looked good, caught 9 of 9 for 70 last week against Washington, and this is going to space out the defense a lot better because you're not going to be able to just key in on Jefferson. If you do, Hawkinson's just going to eat you up in between the seams, in between the hashes. You got Adam Thielen, even though he's pretty ancient, it's just quite honestly looking like the guy could still just be a possession guy and be enough of a threat. So plus Dalvin Cook. So I think Minnesota could be live here to put up 27 points. I would point out one more thing, and I totally forgot about this. So I apologize. It is supposed to be bad weather. 30-plus mile-an-hour winds, possibly snow, heavy rain, and I also took the under at 46. So if you're asking me to make Buffalo, who's very hampered with injuries, cover a big spread at home in bad weather, that's also playing part of the handicap. I got so wrapped up in the Justin Jefferson and the 5.5, so my apologies.
I see where you guys are coming from. I also love me some TJ Hawkinson. I went to tight end university, as we like to call it, Iowa.
No. It's Notre Dame. Notre Dame is tight end U.
No,
it is not Penn State. It is not Iowa.
Iowa is tight end U.
Yeah, well, where are you going, bro? What, Notre Dame? Who went there? Tyler Eifert?
Yeah, who went to
Kyle Rudolph?
Kyle Rudolph is below average. He wasn't even. You're
talking about George Kittle, Noah Fant, and TJ Hawkinson. All 3 guys in the NFL right now.
To be fair, it's good.
They all went to Iowa.
Yeah, bro. Joe, you're taking L's today, bro. You stay taking L's today, dog. Yeah.
Iowa is tight end.
Google tight end.
Over the last 5 to 10 seasons, I would say.
Here we go.
Go ahead. You do it. You do it. Let us know how it goes for you. Notre Dame tight end you. No. Notre Dame's let down you, bro. I don't think so. I think I just think it's too much. It's too much of a cushion for Buffalo to be lying in their condition right now. Iowa's probably a cool school to go to. I wish I went to a place like that. Yeah,
it's awesome.
Well, I'm jealous, so I don't want to hear any more about it. But we got we got a big game on SNF featuring two West Coast teams. We have the LA Chargers, San Francisco 49ers, laying 7. Joe, do you think the Niners stay hot coming off of a bye, or are the Chargers just going to be able to lean on Justin Herbert for a big W in prime time?
Well, Herbert didn't look that great last week against Atlanta. And Atlanta's not as good as San Francisco. And as soon as San Francisco made that McCaffrey trade, I kind of sprinkled a couple of bucks on some NFC futures on the 49ers. So I have a lot invested with the 49ers this year from this point on. And I think they're really, really good. And I think if they're fully healthy, if they can catch everybody right, I think they're the team that can leapfrog everybody else in the NFC. Because I like the Eagles. I think they're good. I think they deserve respect up to this point. But I don't know. I just have question marks about them. The Cowboys haven't won anything in 30-something years. So the Bucks aren't good. Are they good enough to win like the bad division at 8-9 or 9-8? Sure. The NFC South stinks, right? And you and I like the Vikings this year, Johnny. But again, the Vikings haven't won anything ever, right? But the 49ers have recently made 2 NFC championship games with Kyle Shanahan as head coach. They've proven that they can win games with Jimmy Garoppolo, right? And now you add Christian McCaffrey, who, for all intents and purposes, if he stays healthy, he's still one of the 5 best skill position players in the NFL, right? Gives them another weapon to work with, gives them a lot of versatility. Deebo Samuel was already a versatile guy. They have the best blocking tight end, George Kittle, who went to Iowa. There you go. Hopefully that gets me some brownie points back here. I don't like the way the Chargers have looked this season. They've been too up and down for my liking. A lot of results have been fluctuating. So yeah, this is a kind of game where I see a lot of people are going to try to talk themselves into the Chargers, and I don't think that's the case. And it's weird because this line is a little too high for me, but I would even think about laying the points with the 49ers here. I would.
Taylor, do you like the 49ers or the Chargers?
I am on the exact same spot. Historically, the 49ers haven't beat the Chargers since 2002, I think. I'm going to lay the 7 with San Francisco. This contest just really favors the 49ers. We already talked about it. You said, Joe, they added Christian McCaffrey on offense. And wow, against the Rams 2 weeks ago, McCaffrey had a running touchdown. He caught a touchdown. He had 94 rushing yards. He had 58 yards through the air, and he threw a touchdown. So he's just one of the best offensive players that there is. The Chargers were supposed to be so improved on defense heading into the season, but they just look stale. They're worst in the league, allowing 5.7 yards a carry. They gave up 202 yards on the ground to the Falcons, and the 49ers can do a lot better than that in their ground game. So I'm going to lay the 7 points with the 49ers as well.
They have McCaffrey and they have Deebo Samuel. There's a lot of potential there for some trickery.
Getting healthier.
And if you want to sprinkle in a long shot prop, Deebo maybe to have a rushing yard over, a rushing touchdown. That's kind of something that I think plays in a game like this against the Chargers. Sorry, Johnny, go ahead.
It's correlated. So listen, the fact is I understand what San Francisco loves to do. They love to run the ball as much as anybody else does in the NFL. And what are the Chargers' Achilles heel? Run defense. Has been since the beginning of time. Last year, they were pretty much the worst. This year, they're one of the worst. So I understand that there. And it wouldn't surprise me to see San Francisco win in a blowout. But at the end of the day, we have to ask ourselves, do we think that a Jimmy Garoppolo-led team should be 7 points better favored than a Justin Herbert-led team?
Are you a Jimmy Garoppolo hater? Johnny?
I think he's extremely handsome, and if he wasn't as handsome as he was, he'd be bagging groceries. Yes,
he's the most.
He
boring
grew up and went to high school right by me, and he went to Eastern Illinois University, and he is such a nice guy. So I am like a huge Jimmy G supporter, and I think that the San Francisco Bears just dogs on him all the time. And now Johnny's a Jimmy G hater too.
He's also a Metagon. They had him in a Subway commercial saying Capicola and mozzarella instead of gabagool and mozzarella. It's unforgivable. I cannot support a guy that says that. He sold out. He sold out for the Subway money. I can't support it, and I will not. Jimmy Garoppolo. I did buy an NFC to win NFC Niners ticket, but it doesn't matter. Jimmy Garoppolo is a Metagon to me, and thank God he's good looking, because I know some people in my life that if they weren't good looking, I don't know where they'd be right now. It wouldn't be in a place of prominence and privilege, though. I'll tell you that right now.
You think he's just a starting QB in the NFL because he's a good looking man?
Absolutely.
No. Why?
Is it? Is
He
there a
wins
coincidence?
games.
Is
I
there
mean,
games.
yeah, is it? Listen,
I'm
is there
trying to think of starting QBs in the NFL right now that I would deem like
Tom Brady he was a backup to Tom Brady.
But Tom Brady's also attractive. I was trying to think of somebody who's like deemed not attractive, who's a starting QB right now in the NFL. But I'm like trying to think of teams starting quarterbacks, and I don't know. I'm kind of struggling to think of a
maybe Taylor
that's not
Heineke.
attractive right now.
Taylor Heineke's super. I mean, listen, I don't want to start getting into who's attractive, who's not. We're just talking about Jimmy Garoppolo here. We're talking about if I was a hater. If I was a hater,
you brought him up.
I did bring him up. We're not going down this rabbit hole here. All I'm saying is Justin Herbert he's that guy. Like, and I think the rib is starting to heal up better. The Chargers always, as usual, deal with the worst cluster injuries that any other team has dealt with in the last 10 years. But I still think laying 7 points is just too much. A lot of like wackiness has been going on in prime time. And despite what we might think, and I understand on paper it matches up better, but Austin Eckler is going to be a tough cover for this San Francisco defense. I think Nick Bosa will get home. The line, we have to see if Trey Pipkins is going to play. There's a lot of variables here, but this is not something I'm officially on yet, but I would most likely lean Chargers getting the 7, because despite the San Francisco advantage in a lot of areas matchup-wise, it's just too much for Justin Herbert to be getting, even as a road dog, which it's not that big of a road dog. They're in the same time zone. They're in the same damn state. It's a couple-hour flight. So I would have to lean with the Chargers as of now, depending on more injury news. Because you know what? The Niners, not only do they got White Lightning, but they got yak daddies across the board. Debo, Kittle, Ayuk, Samuel, or McCaffrey now. So even Jawan Jennings. But we'll lean with the Chargers. So before we wrap up with any other additional plays and looks that we like, let's get on to the Gambling Guineas best betting trend of the week. I'm all in. Seahawks money line, Vikings plus 5.5. I like them separately. I also like them parlayed. I think they have a great chance of both coming home this week. So this is definitely the play that I'd be on. And FYI, my teasers for the season, 8-1. Let's get it up to 9-1. Be extremely profitable yet again in this department. How you doing? So with that being said, any additional plays from either of you guys? Anything you're looking at? Anything that piques your interest? Doesn't have to be an official play. A game you want to talk about.
I've got my biggest game that I, of course, wanted to talk about was the Cowboys Packers. So I'm like, we covered my game that I wanted to look at.
Joe, tell me you got something, because I'm going to bring one out.
I got something for you. Did you know that Jimmy Garoppolo's career record is 36-17? He's got a touchdown. He's got a touchdown interception ratio 82-42 in his career, and he completes 68% of his passes. All he does is win games.
That only comes from him being handsome, according to Johnny.
And you know what? He was a.
But the problem is, he's like the most boring handsome guy ever. He's boring.
He's actually really nice. He went to Eastern with a bunch of my friends, and I met him in college.
This is also the same guy that put up like 10 points in Green Bay in the playoff game. If it wasn't for like a punt block, the Niners might lose this game. So listen, he's good in the regular season. He's good in the regular season in terms of like steady Eddie. He doesn't have a high ceiling. He doesn't have a low floor. He's just steady Eddie, captain of the ship. That's great. But he's surrounded by
the Trey Lance boat then?
No.
Okay,
no.
Good.
No. Trey Lance was high variance. I thought Garoppolo, in terms of at least this year, was better for them, because you can't expect Lance to come in like Lamar Jackson in 2019 and just have an MVP type of season off the bat. It doesn't usually work like that. Even look at a guy like Josh Allen. 2018, I think, was his first year starting, or was it 2017? It was 18, right?
18.
Yeah. So if it was 2018, then he was terrible. He didn't start getting better until 2019
Right.
until guess who pretty much Shawshank Redemption him, Brian Daboll. So I think if we're looking at this here, it takes at least a year or two for even the best quarterbacks to step up here. But okay, one I wanted to talk about real quick, get your thoughts on Rams -3 at the Cardinals +3 at the LA Rams.
Oh, I have so much to say.
You couldn't bring this one up when I asked you if you
Oh,
had
yeah.
additional
Well, I
plans?
kind of forgot, honestly, for a second. I live in Arizona, so I got lots to say about this. I listen to
I saw
Arizona
this
Sports
before.
Talk Radio 24/7. They just have been going on and on about the Cardinals right now and how, like Arizona Sports Talk Radio, I just feel like they're drinking like the Arizona like optimistic Cardinal juice or something. I'm like, they're terrible. They're horrible. There is no way that they are going to beat the Rams this week. But like all the Arizona sports personalities are still talking like Kyler should be like in the top 10, even maybe top 5 QB situation. And I am baffled by it because I don't understand. Cliff gets this extension. Kyler gets this extension. For what? What did they do to prove that they should have gotten extensions? Kyler Murray is a mid quarterback. Cliff Kingsbury is not the guy that should be here in Arizona if they think that he's winning them championships. It's not happening. They just look horrible. I read a stat that said that they are losing. They're playing from behind 91% of the time in games. So they're losing 91% of the time. They only won 3 games, and most of those have been fluky against the Panthers. That fluke comeback win to the Raiders. And I'm trying to remember who
that was one of my best. That was one of my best hits of the year. Also,
what the comeback against the Raiders? Great comeback.
Also, Cardinals. Taylor Cardinals were +5.5 in that one. They were down 17. I was like, oh no, and then boom, trend covers. I almost got thrown out of Buffalo Wild Wings watching that one.
I love that. I am very on the Rams. Anybody in Arizona that still has faith in the Cardinals, I'm sorry. Even if by some chance they would make it into the playoffs, what do you think they're doing? They're choking. They always choke at the end of the season, and it's correlated and just rode right along the river of continuing into the beginning of this season. I feel like people are still stuck on the fact they started 7-0 last year. It doesn't matter. They look horrible. I'm over the Cardinals. They need to figure out what they're doing because I don't think Kyler or Cliff is the answer.
If Nick was here, he would be blowing a gasket right now.
She's right. Kyler Murray is overrated.
Right. She's 100% right. But Nick
there's no difference to me between Kyler Murray and Tyrod Taylor. There's no difference. They're the same player.
Okay. All right.
No one's taking first overall. That's the difference.
A little bit.
Kyler is like that much better. But there's no difference between the two of them to me. When you watch them play, they look like the same player on the field to me.
Take it easy. Let's settle down over here. I'm not putting Kyler Murray and Kyler Murray looks like a little rugrat, like a toddler running around, doesn't he? Like throwing a temper tantrum.
Right.
I'm not comparing him.
He runs like he has a wet diaper. That's what he runs.
Yeah. I'm not comparing it. I'm not comparing. I think Kyler Murray's got a lot of talent. I do, and I think he's being saddled in a situation with Cliff Kingsbury that they don't jive at all. They have no chemistry. Cliff Kingsbury is like a frat boy head coach. Like he is another college guy, proven example that he cannot hack it in the NFL. I mean, better men than him have failed in the NFL, aka Nick Saban. And while Murray is talented, he's also, from what I heard, he's kind of guy just likes to do his job and go home, if you get my drift. Mm-hmm. And I'm sure Taylor, in your circles, people they might say the same thing.
I have heard that.
He's just not that kind of guy. And the issue with the Cardinals is they try to go scripted, and it's not going well for the most part. And when things start to go well is when Murray starts to do things off script, scramble, no huddle, all that kind of stuff. Mm-hmm. And I'm not a big Arizona guy. I never have. I'll say this, though. Joe, you'll know what I'm about to say. There is not a soul. There's not a person on the planet who knows the Arizona Cardinals better than I do. I'm like the Cardinal whisperer. I know what they're going to do before they do. I've been on every correct side that I've played of the Cardinals, win or lose, cover or not cover, since I think early December last year, except for the Eagles game. That's a fact. So
Nick told me you were going to bring up the Cardinals.
I had to.
Nick Stradamus, so he always He's always got the ball.
Nicholas Durst over here. I think ultimately, though, I probably would lean with the Rams just given the past success, and it's still a field goal game. We didn't get outside that 3.5 there, especially at home. It's the bottom's falling out for both teams, to be honest with you, but kind of how the Niners always have the answer for the Rams is how the Rams have always the answer to the Cardinals.
Yes.
One thing I would look out here, because I know you're going to bring it up. The Cardinals do one thing well on defense, for the most part. They shut down alpha wide receiver ones.
Yes.
Justin Jefferson needed a few catches to hit his over a couple weeks ago, but every single alpha they face, A.J. Brown, Justin Jefferson, Devontae Adams, Cooper Kupp, all get taken out. They get erased. Now, if you look at Cooper Kupp 3 the last 4 times, dating back to even the playoffs last year, 65 yards or less in 3 of them. Wonder if it happens again.
We're fading Kupp then.
Yep.
Maybe Kupp Daddy might be on the
that
favorites.
kind of energy for my fantasy team.
I hear you, but listen, it is what it is.
Kupp to play well.
Do you think the Cardinals get this done, or you think the Rams -3 is absolutely the smash play?
You talking to me?
Yeah, I'm like, me or Joe?
Yeah, oh, sorry. I apologize, both of you. Chime in as you please.
Rams.
Yeah, this is a bounce back game for the Rams. They have the pedigree to be good enough to bounce back after what happened last week.
Totally fair. I think we're all on the same side. I didn't officially play anything here, but I probably would lean with the Rams. This might be going in the Circa contest this week. Really closing in here. We gotta keep that going. But we have to bring up a special guy, the Emerge Player of the Night, brought to you by Emerge Sports Groups, Mr. Tyreek Hill. He is on pace to break Calvin Johnson's single-season receiving yards record in 2012. Hill is on pace for, I believe, 2,045 yards with 144 catches. If that happens, this might go down as even a better receiving season than Kupp had, despite not on pace for a lot of touchdowns. And in all fairness, Tua has underthrown him a lot, where he probably should have about 8 touchdowns. But Taylor, we really appreciate you coming on. So please tell everybody where they can find you.
Yes, you can follow me on social media at TMath Sports, as well as plethora of places for content shows.
Well, thank you so much. We really appreciate it. And before we let you go, as we like to wrap up here every JohnnyVTV live episode, what's your final thoughts heading into Week 10?
Ooh, final thoughts heading into Week 10. I don't think people should count out the Cowboys yet in the NFC East. I still think that there's a chance later on when the Eagles and the Cowboys play each other, the Cowboys could win. I think the Green Bay Packers are done for. And what's my last final thought that I'm thinking of? Fire Cliff Kingsbury. That'll be my third one.
Joseph?
My final thought is she's 100% accurate on Kyler Murray. I've always felt that way. I've never understood the love for him. I've never understood Nick's love for him. That's a little weird to me. The Josh Allen love, I can understand. I get that. But Kyler Murray, no way. I think you're right. I think the NFC East is what you got to watch moving forward, because the Giants coming out of their bye, they get a couple of gimmies. That line against the Texans this week is 6.5. So I don't know if you want to necessarily lay it all, but coming out of that game last week, the Texans played against the Eagles. They struggled at the beginning, and the Eagles kind of won handily a little bit towards the end there, even though they didn't cover. But I think the Eagles, the Giants, and the Cowboys, I think there's a 3-headed monster here in the NFC East. And I'm very curious to see how it plays out, because I don't know if the Eagles are going to go undefeated. They keep saying they're not going to, and they keep winning games. But I'm also with her too. I think you stick a fork in the Packers. If you don't have a pulse next in a divisional game against the Lions, who you're going to have a pulse for, right?
Yeah, one would think that. I guess all I have to say is we have a lot of good betting spots this week, and I think yet again, like last week, there's going to be a lot of dogs that are live in Week 10. So a lot all right,
the dog. Actually, it's the year of the tiger. Well, it's the year of the tiger.
All right, enough. All I know is, this year more than ever, the underdogs are coming through, at least against the spread. A lot of them are coming out straight up. So if you're looking to continue to back the favorites, be very selective of where you're backing, because even these big dogs, these 10 points that you want to lay, it's just not most of the time coming home. So just be very selective and be very smart of where you're picking. The dogs, when in doubt, are the way to go for the most part. Be sure to follow us on Twitter. I'm at _JohnnyVTV. He's at JCalabrese1. Everybody, thank you so much for checking it out, and we'll see you next week.